We are reconvening for the recommended fiscal year 2022 budget work session for the St. Mary's County Board of Education.
We want to make sure that they caught that.
All right.
Yeah. Did they get that before we, or do I have to go again? Yeah, good. Okay.
All right, and with this, I'm going to turn it right over to Ms. McCourt. Ms. McCourt?
Good afternoon.
Hey.
Okay, so last week you heard public comment on your FY22 budget. At that public hearing, we presented to you the unrestricted fund revenues. It included $118.5 million in local funding requests from the county commissioners, or an increase of $9 million over the current year, as well as $1.9 million for non-recurring requests. It also included $108.5 million in projected state aid revenues. We won't know the exact number for our state aid dollar amount until later this month. It included $2.6 million in federal revenues and $1.2 million in other revenue sources, for a total budget as presented at the public hearing of $233 million, or an increase of $2 million over the current year's budget, or 0.87%. Since then, we have a need to include two additional items. One for a special education non-public placement increase of $257,378. And that is an increase that would be recognized on both the revenue and expenditure side as a MSDE funding source, and then as an increase to the special education budget. And we've also received the detailed breakdown of the Chesapeake Charter School budget, and essentially they have realigned the original dollar amount that we had incorporated in the superintendent's budget, as well as included their use of fund balance. As of the end of FY20, they had $75,072 remaining in their fund balance that they wish to incorporate. So moving on to the next slide, where that leaves us is a total recommended budget at this time of $233.4 million, or an increase of $2.3 million, or exactly 1% over the current year's fiscal budget. So going over quickly some of the budget highlights for the FY22 budget. This budget does include contractually obligated negotiated step and COLA increase for our ESMIC and ESMIC ESB staff. Funding has been included for the SMASA negotiations that are currently underway. And for our bus contractors, this budget includes a per vehicle, or PVA, bus increase. It also includes an increase in the hourly rate of pay for our contracted bus drivers and attendants, equivalent to that provided to our ESPs. And there are no new initiatives and no new positions included. And additionally, there are departmental budget cuts that were put forward by the directors to assist in balancing the budget with such a nominal increase. We did include, on the next slide please, the planned use of budget fund balance for IT upgrades to include CTE, digital textbook license renewals, replacement vehicles, and building modifications. As previously shared with the board, there are reclassifications included for 3 position classifications. The cost of these reclassifications will be solely borne by the restricted funds. These reclassifications include the Title I supervisor going to Director of Parent and Family Engagement, the office manager supporting Dr. Hall in Title I going to administrative assistant, and the accountants and fiscal services who have been supporting the increased volume of grants will have their reclassification costs borne by the restricted fund indirect grant administrative fees, which is actually where one of the accountants is currently being charged at 100%. Next slide, please. So last week we did have public comment, and as a result of that, we're bringing some consideration specifically in the transportation category. So the first area of consideration is for an increase in the maintenance rate. Each bus contract currently includes a per mile rate to support necessary bus maintenance. And we've shown in the screen here the historical cost increase or rate increase that we've provided to our bus contractors. Back in 2015, there was a rate per mile of 73 cents per mile. And most recently in 2021, we increased it from 86 cents last year to 88 cents this year, and that is the proposed rate that we currently have in your FY22 budget. That percentage increase from 2015 to 2021 represents a 20.55% increase. For your consideration, for every 1 cent increase, the cost to the budget is $39,500. The contractors requested a 10-cent increase, and that represents a $395,000 annual cost. Next slide. Additionally, from the bus contractors, they're requesting a minimum contract employee payment rate increase. Each contract currently includes a minimum amount of time that is paid for the contractor route, and it has been set at 5.5 hours for several years. They have requested an increase for consideration to 6 hours as the minimum base. That cost to the budget per day is $1,454, or a cost to the annual budget for 181 days is $263,174. And the final request from the transportation contractors is for an increase in the fringe benefit rate. Each contract includes a percentage paid to cover employee fringe benefits. The rate has been at 25% for many years. As a comparison point, our publicly bid contract with Abacus includes a fringe benefit rate of 26.5%, and that annual cost to the budget would be $77,560. So at this point, I'd like to pause here to take any questions that you might have on the transportation that were submitted, and I believe that Jeff Thompson is on the line as well to assist in any answers to any questions you might have.
Mrs. McCourt, you mentioned the average bus route is 5.5 hours per day, is that correct?
That is the minimum number of hours that are paid on a bus route.
And where did you get that data? Where'd that data come from?
The minimum number of hours is actually set in your contract with the bus contractors.
So that was negotiated.
No, none of this is negotiated, Jim. They aren't our employees. The formula that we put forward and the funding that we provide for bus contractors is predicated on a daily minimum hourly total per bus driver of 5.5 hours. Some drive substantially more, but nobody gets paid less than 5.5 hours for a day of driving with any contractor.
I see. So that's like a weighted average. Okay.
Yeah,
I just didn't know where the number came from.
yep.
Thank you.
I was somewhat struck last week by Mr. Goldsborough's comment. At least as I understood it, he said that bus drivers were not currently being paid. Did I
No.
misunderstand that?
The bus drivers have been paid throughout,
Right.
but they have been paid the day rate for 5.5 hours per day. Now, they're driving no hours.
Right.
But they're being paid for the minimum 5.5 hours
So for any of our drivers who have a route that's longer than that
in service.
in service, that so they're actually getting less money, but they are at least getting something, correct?
Right. Jeff, could you talk about, Mr. Thompson, could you talk about like the average bus driver drives a route that usually is how many hours? I guess that was the argument that they were making.
Well, I'll start to say we have 93 out of our 163 regular routes. 93 are at or below 5.5 hours a day. So a majority of them do not serve a route that's over that time. So then we do have routes that are above that. So you have some people that out there that if the route's running, which we did pay for a period of about 20 days that we paid when we did have students in session. We paid about 20 days that they were running, and those averages typically 7.5 for people that are over the 5.5 hours. But like I said, the majority of our buses are actually at or below the 5.5 hours of what they're actually doing a day.
So realistically, it's not like they're driving 6 hours. It's just like they'd like to be paid as if they were.
Got it.
So really, it's an increase to hourly rate of pay.
Right. Now, the cost to budget, like a 1% increase and then the cost to budget for a 10-cent increase, that's over and above what we're paying now, correct?
Yes,
All right.
Right, because right now we're paying
88
88
cents.
cents.
Right, and I guess where I'm going with this is like the minimum time, cost to budget per day, and then cost to budget per year. If we were to go with the 6 hours, it would cost us 263,000 plus
Plus what we're
above
already
what
paying.
we're already paying.
Right.
Got it.
Yes. And the same thing with maintenance, we've gone from, so since I've been superintendent, we've increased the maintenance rate per mile by 20%. So it went from 73 cents to 88 cents over the past 6 years. So and what they're asking for, the 10 cents that they're asking for, if we were to pay that particular portion of the formula at the same rate as our neighbors, Calvert's 98 and Charles is 96, Mr. Thompson, I think?
Yes, currently, Calvert County is 90, almost 99. They're .9894, and Charles is .9621,
Okay.
the highest in the state.
Oh, it's the highest in the state. That's in.
Oh, Charles?
Yeah. And so that money does not go to the drivers.
That goes
That
to the contractors.
money goes to whoever owns the bus. That goes to the contractor owners.
That's correct.
Can I ask another question, Dr. Thompson, and maybe, or Mr. Thompson, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. So, you know, we have the life expectancy of a school bus? Of however many years that they put
Yes.
into their calculation, and what is that, 15 or 10? I can't remember.
15?
Well, we're by state law, we can have buses, have to be off the road at 15 years.
Okay.
Can only be on the road for up to 15 years. Now, we do a 12-year replacement cycle for our regular routes, which is the old cycle used to be 12 years, and so we do 12 years, and you can run spares for an additional 3 years.
Okay. All right. So I guess the question is, of these 3 items that were brought up at the meeting, does the board have any interest in directing the school system to further evaluate or determine if we want to provide anything in the budget? The only thing that the only one that is possible, the only one to me that might seem like it would gain any traction is the one with Abacus and the fringe benefit rate.
Yep.
Because I can't say that, I mean, I don't know if we've had Abacus employees that have been around as long as some of our bus drivers have.
Right.
In years and years of service. So to me, it seems slightly unfair that just because Abacus bid a contract of a fringe benefit rate of this, and, you know, I have various levels of service at Abacus that probably do not,
Sure.
you know, outpace my rate at the bus drivers. That would be the only one that I would be considering, just based on what's presented here.
Right, and I agree with you on that. If we can do it, but I mean, we're gonna have to find that money from somewhere, and that's gonna be a challenge.
I mean, all of the money that we're talking about is money that we don't have.
Yes,
Right, I
I
understand that.
understand.
But so it does
But
make,
that doesn't mean we still can't go forward
right,
with
it does make sense to align that.
Correct. So that would be my only suggestion, is to possibly include that additional, oh my God, that additional 77,000, whatever it is, 560, into the budget, just to align them with those Abacus employees. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Mary, Jim, Nagina, any comments on that?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
All right, Mary, do you have anything, since I saw you just turned on your microphone?
So basically what I'm hearing the superintendent say is we do not have enough money to give them everything that they are asking for. Your suggestion, because sometimes it's hard for me to hear, is that you recommend giving them the 26.5, which would add $77,560 to our already budget.
Correct.
Because does that, their fringe benefit rate is 26.5, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And so you're saying we should be able to do this form since it's $77,560. So at least they would get something, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. And keep going. I have another question for Mr. Thompson. But go ahead, Mary. Do you have anything else?
No, I just want to be clear what you were saying and what the superintendent is able to do to come up with this additional $77,560 to give them some kind of transportation fringe benefit rate.
Okay.
Is this doable, superintendent? Can you come up with that?
So Mary, so Mrs. Washington, if we go back to what we're going to be sending over across the street at the end of this month, is to the county commissioners to have our budget work. The county commissioners have to give us $9 million over last year's amount recurring, and $2 million from their fund balance, one-time funds. So based on past practice with the county commissioners, I find it doubtful that they will,
Right.
accept that amount. So no matter what, we're going to find out from them where they stand. We are sending them over the recommended budget, and then they will tell us what funds they have available. When that comes back across the street, we're going to then have to figure out what can stay and not stay in the budget. What we're presenting to you today is we had contractor president come forward from the bus transportation for buses, and he expressed the desire from the contractors to have several things included in the budget. We're outlining what those costs would be. All of it is money that we currently haven't
have.
secured.
Correct.
Mr. Go ahead. Mr. Thompson, when you determined what you were going to put forward as a recommendation, the contractors generally provide what they're asking for, correct?
Yes.
Yes, they submit a letter of request from the association.
Okay, and how well did that letter of request align with what you present? In other words, what I'm asking is, did they present a letter that said this is what we want and then thought differently, and last week's request was beyond what had been in the letter?
The letter was similar to what their request was last week.
Okay,
So we did review those items, here internally, but the direction going out to all the departments was to try to reduce your budgets by 10%, which we tried, all those different items. And the two items we ended up leaving in were the PVA increase, because that's an unavoidable cost because we have to replace those buses. And then, we thought the best thing was try to align the driver hourly rate that pays to the contractors along with align that with our other non-certificated employees in the system.
well, I think the other piece is when you've shown us the history over the last 5 years and what's proposed for the next 2 years in terms of the per mile rate for maintenance, it's clear that you have been working that up incrementally over the years, and I think that's something we have to continue to pursue. That there's just no way we can take a huge bite of this or of the minimum contract employee payment. So I'm going to stick with what Mrs. Bailey said. If we can approach the 26.5% versus the 25, and I would say even if we had to go to 26 for next year and aim for 26.5 in other words, if we had to have that cost it would at least get us something. And I would be inclined to at least work on that particular item.
Okay. Okay. All right.
The thing I would add too is they're asking for an increase of 20.55%. That's that just doesn't wash with me.
Wait,
It's a,
No,
What?
they're
No.
asking for a 10-cent increase to get up to 98 cents per mile, which would be a little over a 10% increase. We have increased the rate over 20% since 2005.
yeah,
So-
yes, I'm sorry, you're
Yeah,
right.
so we've never done it, we've never done a 10-cent jump, that's substantial. Now, we are not, we increased it 2 cents this year, and we have proposed holding it flat for next.
Right.
right,
Really, the money that was, the additional money that was built into transportation was built in for PVA, for the buses themselves, and for the people who drive and support drivers,
Yeah.
which is
One
in
of the
keeping
things I
with
don't-
the rest of the budget.
The thing that I don't really have a handle on is 88 cents per mile. Is that a realistic number? Seems like awful high, but we're not talking about fuel, we're just talking about maintenance, correct? That's a reserve for maintenance?
Yeah. So, Mr. Thompson, how does that compare to the maintenance rates across the county, or across the state? We heard
Wait,
about
wait.
the two counties that were the highest.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Before you answer that.
Sure.
So-
So in the state, there are 18 counties that pretty much use contractors for the most part. Out of those 18 counties, you have 16 that use a formula system, and then we are middle of the pack. So we're about seventh highest amongst the rates across the state. So it ranges from, and actually I said that Calvert and Charles are the two highest. They're actually second and third behind. Garrett County out in the mountains has a lot of maintenance rates, so there's a little bit of high. And then we range from theirs, which is about, Charles or Calvert's 98 cents. And then it all goes down to Somerset at 70 cents a mile. And one of the things also to keep in mind is this is always something that's questioned by the legislative auditors in their reports. So we always have to contend with that explanation when we deal with them.
Well, that was my question, because you always hear about, so the maintenance is not necessarily emissions or fees or anything like that associated with the buses, correct? Because, I don't know what the requirements are here versus Calvert, but there's different requirements for those counties that touch the Beltway, or technically classified as metropolitan counties where we are not.
yeah.
So that could also, I'm asking if that could also be the reason for some of the difference in the maintenance.
Right, because we don't have, certainly for cars, we don't have the fuel emission or we don't have the emissions regulations here in St. Mary's that they do up in Charles, correct? Does that hold for buses as well?
No, the buses are all treated the same as far as emissions and those different other standards in the state. So it's, so there's no difference within that. Now, and it's just, the different decisions based upon the per hour rates have always been just budgetary considerations and, different items that availability of funds have been there.
Well, at this point, what we could do is very simple. We'll put the change so that we're completely aligned, so that the any contracted services 26.5 is the fringe rate, so it aligns with what we're doing for Abacus.
Right.
And we will incorporate those numbers into the budget when we bring it back before you at the next Board of Ed meeting.
That works.
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. And with that, there's really nothing else within the budget itself. We are waiting
For the state numbers.
for the state numbers. And until we have this,
Is the end of this within the next week or so.
yes, the governor should be putting forth his budget, and then
I got you, Mary.
It should be, yep.
Yes, Mary?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly about the minimum contract employees payment rate. It's been 5.5 hours for many years. And Mr. Thompson, was this based on the consideration that bus drivers are on call with the school system and they cannot get another job? Because they may be on call at any time to come back to school, to pick up kids, to do whatever they have to do in an emergency. And it's been 5.5 hours for many years. Do they want it to go to 6 hours? And then it'll come to almost over $250,000 a year? Is that what that is?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's correct. So this has been it's the 5.5 has been in place since, I think even before I started back in 2005. So it's, but we have about 93 buses. 93 of our buses out of the 163 route buses are at or under that is what they actually do. And so they're asking for those 93 buses to then from a 5.5 minimum pay to up to a 6-hour minimum pay per day.
And that was based on the fact that basically they are on call and they can't get another job. So they want to be compensated for more hours since they can't hold another job. Is that the rationale behind that?
I believe that's what the contractors, their rationale is trying to increase the base pay for a drive, setting a base limit and increasing that up from what it is. And yeah, they've expressed that rationale that you are saying.
How can we get there in the future? I mean, how many, so that's been about almost 20 years that it's been 5.5 hours?
Yeah, the minimum has been in place for about that time. And that's not out of the norm around the state, 5 hours. There are some that are higher, some that are low around the state.
So where are we in
I'd have to look that
where?
exactly of our comparison to others.
But remember, it might be 5.5 hours, but the what am I trying to say? The dollars per hour have gone up over the years. So their pay has increased, just the hours haven't changed. It's not like for the last 20 years.
Well, most importantly, they're not going to be driving any more hours. Like,
Right.
we'd be just giving more, it's a pay raise.
Right.
So the people
Yeah,
working.
it is.
Yeah, the people driving a 5.5-hour route, these shorter routes, would be making more per hour
Exactly.
than everybody else. Because they're driving the same amount of time, they're just being paid more for it.
Okay, so they where's that? Do you have a chart on the raises?
Well, we incorporated a 4.75% increase in this budget.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
in their,
In this budget or last
in
year?
their
in this
salary.
The
budget.
current.
That is in the
2022.
formula. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I got you.
Along to a step in a COLA.
Thank you. So they do get an increase,
And I would add,
hours.
last year, we did increase the rate pretty significantly. We did an adjustment. The rate that's this year is a significant increase over what it was last year.
Thank you. That makes it clearer and more palatable, yeah. So I support what Chairman Bailey said then,
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
for the fringe benefits, yes.
about the 26.5.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
We can do that. We can bring that back around, and then we'll have
Okay.
the budget before you on the 27th.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Yes,
Alrighty.
27th.
It's been a good day. Got a lot
Thank
done.
you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Mr.
Okay,
Johnson.
thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
See you, Nagina.